The verdict. The Grand Assembly Hall of Nexus Station floated in the void between galaxies, a monument to 50,000 years of interstellar cooperation. Its walls were carved from living crystal that hummed with ancient power. 15 platforms circled the chamber's center, each one holding a representative of the species that governed known space. And in the middle of it all stood Ambassador Elena Cross of Earth, feeling very small and very alone. She had been standing there for 3 hours while alien voices debated humanity's future. Her legs ached. Her throat was dry. But her spine remained straight and her chin remained high. 30 years of diplomatic service had taught her that appearance mattered, especially when you were outnumbered 15-1. The Prime Adjudicator finally raised his crystalline hand for silence. Thane was old, perhaps the oldest being in the chamber. His body was formed entirely of interlocking transparent crystals that shifted color with his emotions. Right now, those crystals glowed a deep amber that Elena had learned meant disapproval. Ambassador Cross, Thane's voice resonated through the chamber like wind chimes in a storm. Humanity has petitioned for full membership in the Galactic Unity Council. For 30 standard years, your species has participated as provisional members. In that time, we have observed you carefully. Elena felt her heart beating faster but kept her face neutral. This was the moment. Everything humanity had worked for came down to whatever Thane said next. The Council has reviewed your record, Thane continued. We have examined your contributions, your conduct, and your character as a species. He paused, and Elena saw his crystals darken to a deep red. We find you wanting. The words hit Elena like a physical blow, but she did not move. Around the chamber, some alien delegates shifted in what might have been discomfort. Others leaned forward with clear satisfaction. Thane activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. Images of human colonies appeared, rotating slowly. In 30 years, humanity has established permanent settlements on 18 worlds. Your population has grown from 8 billion to 12 billion. Your technology has advanced at a rate we have never observed in any species at your developmental stage. We have harmed no one, Elena said, her voice calm and clear. Every world we settled was uninhabited. Every advance we made was shared freely with our partners. We have followed every law, respected every boundary, and contributed our fair share to council projects. Your words are true, Thane acknowledged. But truth and wisdom are not always the same thing. Your growth is unprecedented. Your ambition is boundless. Your emotional nature makes your species unpredictable. From one of the platforms, a massive figure rose. Commander Zex of the Krell Empire stood 3 meters tall, his body covered in dark blue scales that gleamed like metal. His eyes, all 6 of them, focused on Elena with what she had learned to recognize as contempt. The human speaks of harm, Zex's voice was a deep rumble. But what of the harm that comes from carelessness? What of the danger posed by a species that acts before it thinks? That feels before it reasons? He gestured toward the holographic display. 18 colonies in 30 years. Do you not see the pattern? Humanity spreads like fire across dry grass. Today it is 18 worlds. Tomorrow it will be 100. And when those worlds are not enough, when humans have filled every empty space, what then? Will they come for our worlds? We have no interest in conquest, Elena said firmly. Humanity has fought wars among ourselves, yes. We do not hide our history. But we have also learned from it. We know the cost of aggression. We seek only peaceful coexistence. Peaceful coexistence requires trust, another voice spoke up. This one belonged to Matron Vela of the Syndrian Collective, a being that looked like flowing water held in a roughly humanoid shape. How can we trust a species that changes so rapidly? Your technology advances in decades what takes other species centuries. Your population grows exponentially. Your very biology drives you toward constant expansion and transformation. Elena took a deep breath. She had prepared for this argument. Change is not synonymous with danger. Humanity adapts quickly because we must. Our homeworld taught us harsh lessons. We learned to be flexible, to innovate, to overcome challenges that would have destroyed less resilient species. That same adaptability makes us valuable partners. We solve problems others cannot. Or create problems others would never face, Zex countered. Your emotional responses are erratic. You make decisions based on feelings rather than logic. You form attachments that cloud judgment. You are, in essence, children playing with tools meant for adults. Elena felt anger flash through her chest but kept it off her face. We form connections that make us strong. We care for one another in ways that drive us to achieve the impossible. Our emotions are not weakness. They are the source of our greatest strengths. Philosophy, Zex waved a scaled hand dismissively. Pretty words that change nothing. The facts remain. Humanity is too young, too unpredictable, too ambitious. They are a threat waiting to manifest. Elena looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each delegate in turn. Some looked away. Others stared back with expressions she could not read. Only one delegate seemed truly engaged in what she was saying. The Verithan observer sat on a platform of pure shadow, his form barely visible except for eyes that glowed with soft silver light. Verithans rarely spoke in council sessions. They watched, they recorded, but they almost never voted. Yet something in the observer's posture suggested he was listening with an intensity none of the others showed. I will not stand here and pretend humanity is perfect, Elena said, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. We are flawed. We make mistakes. We struggle with fears and prejudices just as every species does. But in 30 years, we have proven ourselves peaceful neighbors. We have contributed more to Council scientific databases than some species have in centuries. We have sent aid to worlds in crisis without hesitation or expectation of reward. We have earned our place here. Thane's crystals shifted through several colors before settling on a pale blue that Elena had never seen before. Your record is indeed remarkable, Ambassador Cross. Your species has surprised us in many ways. But the Council's responsibility is not merely to judge past actions. We must also consider future risks. And the consensus of this assembly is clear. Elena's stomach dropped. She had lost. She knew it before Thane said another word. The Council will vote on the following resolution, Thane announced. Humanity is hereby denied full membership. Furthermore, for the protection and stability of the galactic community, humanity will be restricted to the Sol system for a minimum period of 500 standard years. All human colonies beyond Sol must be evacuated within 2 standard years. Any human vessels found outside the designated boundary after that time will be disabled and their crews returned to Earth. This isolation period will allow humanity time to mature as a species while preventing potential destabilization of galactic society. The words fell like hammer blows. Elena stood frozen, her mind struggling to process what she had just heard. Not just membership denied. Complete isolation. Centuries of containment. The abandonment of worlds where millions of humans now lived, where children had been born under alien stars, where people had built lives and dreams. This is not justice, Elena said, her voice shaking despite her best efforts. This is imprisonment for crimes we have not committed. You are condemning humanity based on fear, not evidence. We are protecting the galaxy, Zex said with unmistakable satisfaction. Sometimes prevention is wiser than cure. The vote will now proceed, Thane declared. All in favor of the isolation resolution. One by one, lights appeared above the delegate platforms. Green for approval. Red for rejection. Elena watched as green light after green light illuminated the chamber. The Krell, obviously. The Syndrian Collective. The Thalan Assembly. The Mordran Unity. Species after species voted to cage humanity like dangerous animals. When the lights finally stopped appearing, Elena counted 13 green lights. Only 2 red lights glowed in opposition. One belonged to the delegates from the Covenant of Free Traders, a loose alliance of independent merchant species who had profited greatly from human business. The other red light belonged to the Verithan Observer. The resolution passes, Thane announced. Humanity will be informed of the specific terms and timelines. Ambassador Cross, you have 48 hours to vacate Nexus Station. Your credentials are hereby revoked. Elena stood in silence for a long moment. Every delegate was watching her, waiting to see how she would react. Would she rage? Would she plead? Would she break down? She could feel their expectations pressing down on her like physical weight. Instead, she smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had just been handed a challenge and was already planning how to overcome it. May I speak one final time? Elena asked calmly. Thane hesitated, then nodded. You may. Elena looked around the chamber one more time, memorizing every face, every platform, every detail. When she spoke, her voice was soft but somehow it filled the entire space. I came here today hoping to join you as equals. I believed, perhaps naively, that 30 years of peaceful coexistence would be enough to earn humanity's place among the stars. I was wrong. You have chosen fear over friendship. You have chosen to imprison a species that has done nothing to harm you. She paused, letting her words sink in. But I want you to understand something. You are not protecting yourselves from a threat. You are creating one. Humanity has always risen to meet impossible challenges. We have survived ice ages and plagues, wars and disasters that would have ended lesser species. We have climbed from caves to spacecraft in the blink of an eye by galactic standards. And we have done it all while fighting against ourselves, against our own nature, against a universe that seemed determined to destroy us. Elena's smile widened slightly. You have just given us a new challenge. You have told humanity that we are not good enough, not mature enough, not trustworthy enough to stand among you. Very well. We will spend the next 500 years proving you wrong. We will build and grow and advance in ways you cannot imagine. And when that time is over, when we return to knock on your door again, you will open it. Because by then, you will have no choice. Zex let out a harsh laugh. Brave words from a defeated species. Return to your little solar system, human. Learn your place. Elena turned her gaze directly on the Krell commander. History will remember this day, Commander Zex. It will remember who voted to cage humanity. And it will remember what happened because of that vote. I genuinely hope you live long enough to see it. She looked back at Thane. I have nothing more to say to this council. I will return to Earth and inform my people of your decision. We will comply with your terms. We will evacuate our colonies. We will retreat to Sol. And we will remember. With that, Elena turned and walked toward the chamber's exit. Her footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. No one spoke. No one moved. They all watched as humanity's ambassador left the Grand Assembly Hall for what they believed would be the last time. As the doors closed behind her, Elena allowed herself one moment of weakness. Her hands shook. Her vision blurred. But only for a moment. Then she straightened her shoulders, wiped her eyes, and pulled out her encrypted communicator. She typed one word, Exodus. The message flew across space faster than light, reaching Earth in minutes. In command centers and government buildings, military bases and research facilities, that single word triggered protocols that had been prepared for exactly this possibility. Humanity had hoped for acceptance. But they had planned for rejection. As Elena's ship departed Nexus Station, she stood at the viewport and watched the ancient structure grow smaller behind her. Somewhere in that crystalline monument to galactic civilization, 15 species were congratulating themselves on containing a threat. They believed they had solved a problem. They had no idea what they had actually done. They had given humanity something far more dangerous than freedom. They had given humanity a purpose. A shared enemy. A reason to unite and push beyond every limitation. The galaxy would learn soon enough. You could cage a human. But you could never make them accept the cage. Elena smiled again as Earth appeared in the distance, a blue marble wrapped in white clouds. Her smile was not kind. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret the rest of the galaxy would discover too late. Humanity had been given 500 years to prepare. They would need less than 2. The reckoning. 18 months had passed since the vote. Across the galaxy, news broadcasts showed the same images every day. Human transport ships moving between colony worlds and Earth. Massive cargo vessels hauling equipment back to Sol System. Families boarding shuttles with tears streaming down their faces as they said goodbye to worlds they had called home. The evacuation was proceeding exactly as the Council had demanded. On Nexus Station, Commander Zex watched the latest footage with deep satisfaction. He stood in the observation deck reserved for high-ranking military officers, his scaled hands clasped behind his back. Around him, holographic displays showed human activity across all 18 colonies. They comply beautifully, he said to his second-in-command, a younger Krell named Drath. Like animals returning to their cages. I told the Council that humans would break easily once shown firm resolve. Drath nodded agreement, though his eyes showed some uncertainty. The numbers are puzzling, Commander. Our intelligence suggests the evacuation is proceeding faster than human logistics should allow. Their transport capacity was estimated at moving perhaps 3 million people per month. Yet they claim to be moving 5 million. Zex waved a dismissive hand. Humans lie when convenient. They always have. They are probably inflating numbers to appear more cooperative than they actually are. What matters is that they are leaving. By the deadline, Sol System will contain all of humanity. Finally, the galaxy can breathe easily. What Zex did not know, what none of the Council knew, was that the numbers were indeed false. But not in the way he imagined. Beneath the surface of New Covenant, the third human colony established 30 years ago, 5 million people continued their lives as if nothing had changed. They lived in massive underground cities that had been constructed in secret over the past 18 months. Hydroponic farms stretched for kilometers. Fusion reactors provided unlimited power. Advanced air recycling systems made the underground habitat completely self-sustaining. Similar cities existed beneath the surfaces of all 18 colony worlds. While transport ships appeared to carry millions away, they actually carried sophisticated sensor decoys and a skeleton crew to operate them. The real colonists had gone underground. Disappeared. Vanished from every scanner and satellite the Council used to monitor compliance. On Earth, in a facility buried 3 kilometers beneath the Canadian Rockies, Ambassador Elena Cross stood before a holographic map showing all of humanity's true positions. Red dots marked the hidden colonies. Blue dots marked listening posts and sensor networks that humans had seeded throughout Council space. Green dots marked something else entirely. Project Anvil status report, Elena said to the assembled team of military officers and scientists. General Marcus Wade stepped forward. He was a stocky man with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much combat. All Phoenix Fleet vessels have completed construction. 3,000 warships, fully crewed and operational. They've been running stealth drills for the past 6 months. Council sensors have detected nothing. Dr. Amara Okonkwo, Elena turned to a brilliant physicist who looked far too young for the responsibility she carried. Quantum slip drive? Amara's face lit up with excitement. Operational and tested. We can now travel faster than light without creating the gravimetric signatures that standard FTL drives produce. Essentially, we become invisible when we want to be. Our ships can cross the galaxy and the Council will never see us coming. Elena nodded slowly. And the deterrent package? Amara's expression became more serious. The hammerstrike system is ready. Kinetic impactors that can be deployed from orbit with pinpoint accuracy. Non-nuclear but devastating. Coupled with our electromagnetic pulse weapons, we can disable any ship or facility without destroying it. If we must fight, we can win without becoming monsters. Good, Elena said softly. We need to be able to defend ourselves without becoming conquerors. The Council fears what we might do. We need to prove them wrong while also proving them foolish for caging us. Ma'am, a young intelligence officer named Chen spoke up. We're receiving concerning reports from the Jupiter corridor. A Krell battle group has entered Sol system claiming they're conducting a compliance inspection. Elena's eyes narrowed. That violates the isolation agreement. They're supposed to monitor from outside the boundary. Yes, ma'am. But Commander Zex is leading the group personally. He's claiming authority under Council security protocols. Elena felt cold certainty settle in her chest. This was it. The moment she had been preparing for. Zex was not here to inspect. He was here to provoke. To test humanity's resolve. To see if humans would truly accept their cage. How many ships, she asked. 23 warships. Heavy cruiser class. They're heading toward the civilian transport lanes near Jupiter. Elena closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, they were hard as diamonds. Get me Commander Sarah Chen. Now. Somewhere in the darkness beyond Neptune's orbit, Commander Sarah Chen sat in the captain's chair of the UHNS Prometheus. The ship was enormous, larger than anything humanity had ever built before. Its hull was black as midnight, covered in stealth plating that bent light and sensor beams around it. Around the Prometheus floated 300 more ships of the Phoenix fleet, all equally invisible to conventional detection. Sarah was 45 years old, a veteran of humanity's small conflicts and large aspirations. She had been chosen to lead the Phoenix fleet not because she was aggressive, but because she understood restraint. She knew when to fight and when to wait. Right now, she was waiting. Her communications officer looked up suddenly. Commander, encrypted priority message from Ambassador Cross. Sarah read the message quickly. Then she read it again. Her jaw tightened. Battle stations. All ships power up weapons but keep stealth systems active. We're going in. Ma'am, going in where? Sarah's expression was grim. Jupiter space. The Krell just made a fatal mistake. Commander Zex stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Vengeance, as his fleet approached a cluster of human transport ships. The transports were massive but slow, designed for carrying thousands of civilians rather than speed or combat. Perfect targets to demonstrate Krell's superiority. Hail the lead transport, Zex ordered. A moment later, a human face appeared on his screen. The captain was a middle-aged woman who looked exhausted. This is Captain Rodriguez of the transport vessel Hope. We are in full compliance with Council regulations. We're carrying refugees from the Mars colonies back to Earth. I will be the judge of your compliance, Zex said coldly. You will submit to immediate boarding and inspection. Any resistance will be met with force. Rodriguez's face showed fear. Please, Commander. We have families aboard. Children. We're just trying to get home. Then you have nothing to fear from inspection, Zex replied. Unless you're hiding something. He cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. Target their engines. A warning shot. Let's remind these humans who is in charge here. The weapons officer hesitated. Sir, they're a civilian vessel. The isolation agreement specifically prohibits military action against non-combatants. Zex's eyes narrowed dangerously. Are you questioning my orders? No, sir. Targeting now. The Vengeance's main cannon powered up. Energy gathered in a brilliant blue sphere. On the transport ship, alarms began to scream. Families grabbed their children. Old people clutched their belongings. Everyone knew what was about to happen and knew there was nothing they could do to stop it. The cannon fired. The energy bolt crossed the distance in a heartbeat. It struck the transport's main engine pod. Metal vaporized. Atmosphere vented into space. The ship lurched violently. And then the explosion came. The engine core ruptured. Secondary explosions rippled through the ship's aft section. Emergency bulkhead slammed shut, but not fast enough. 3 entire decks were exposed to vacuum. On the Vengeance's bridge, Zex watched with cold satisfaction as debris and bodies drifted into space. His tactical officer was frantically working his console. "Sir, damage assessment shows catastrophic casualties. At least 800 dead, possibly more." "A regrettable accident," Zex said without emotion. "They should have complied faster. Log it as a response to suspected resistance. Prepare to board the remaining transports and..." Every alarm on his ship started screaming at once. His tactical officer's face went white. "Sir. New contacts. Hundreds of them. They just appeared on sensors all around us." "What?" Zex spun to look at the tactical display. His blood turned to ice. Ships surrounded his fleet. Dozens of them. Hundreds of them. Sleek black vessels that had materialized from nothing. And they were all targeting his ships with weapon systems that registered far beyond anything in the Krell arsenal. A new voice filled his bridge. It was calm, professional, and absolutely terrifying in its certainty. "Commander Zex, this is Commander Sarah Chen of the United Human Naval Service. You have just murdered 847 civilians, including 203 children. You violated the isolation agreement. You fired on unarmed refugees. You committed an act of war." Zex tried to speak but his voice came out as a croak. He cleared his throat. "You dare threaten a council military officer? Your species is isolated. You have no authority to." "We have the authority that comes from being the only ships in this space with active weapons." Sarah's voice cut through his protests like a blade. "Here's what's going to happen now. Your entire fleet will power down all weapons and surrender immediately. Your crews will be taken into custody. You personally will stand trial for murder." Zex's shock transformed into rage. "You think your primitive ships frighten me? I have 23 warships. What do you have? A few experimental vessels that will break down the moment we fire on them? I will destroy you all, and when I return to the council, they will thank me for eliminating the human threat once and for all." "I have 300 ships in immediate range," Sarah replied calmly. "Another 1,000 within 10 minutes. And technology you cannot even comprehend. But you don't have to believe me. Feel free to attack. Please. Give me a reason." Zex slammed his fist on his console. "All ships. Target the human vessels. Fire at will." For a moment, the Krell ships attempted to comply. Their weapons tried to lock on to the human vessels. Their targeting computers processed trajectories and solutions. But before a single shot could be fired, the Krell ship simply stopped working. Every system on every Krell vessel died simultaneously. Weapons went offline. Engines went cold. Life support shifted to backup power. Even the lights dimmed. 23 warships drifted helplessly in space, completely disabled in less than 3 seconds. On the Prometheus, Sarah watched her tactical display with grim satisfaction. Electromagnetic pulse at 40% power. All hostile vessels disabled. No casualties. Boarding teams, you are go. Small human ships detached from the Phoenix fleet and approached the floating Krell vessels. Marines in powered armor cut through airlocks and swept through the ships with professional efficiency. Within minutes, every Krell crew was in custody without a single shot being fired. Sarah opened a channel that broadcast to the entire solar system, the entire council space, the entire galaxy. This is Commander Sarah Chen of the United Human Phoenix Fleet. 18 months ago, the Galactic Council voted to isolate humanity. They called us dangerous. They called us unpredictable. They caged us like animals because they feared what we might become. She paused, letting her words reach across the stars. Today, Commander Zex of the Krell Empire violated that isolation. He murdered 847 human civilians in an unprovoked attack on refugees. Men, women, children. Killed because one species believed they had the right to attack humans with impunity. Sarah's voice hardened. We could have destroyed every ship in his fleet. We could have killed every Krell who participated in this massacre. We chose not to. We disabled their vessels without casualties. We took them into custody. We showed mercy because that is who we are. But make no mistake. This mercy is not weakness. A holographic projection activated, showing the full extent of the Phoenix fleet. 3,000 warships appeared on sensors across the galaxy simultaneously, dropping their stealth for just long enough to be seen and counted. For 18 months, you thought humanity was retreating. Submitting. Learning our place. You were wrong. We were building. We were preparing. We were becoming something you never imagined. Sarah gestured and the hologram shifted to show technological specifications that made every alien scientist watching go pale. Quantum slip drives that make us invisible. Weapons that can disable entire fleets without firing a shot. Defensive systems that make our ships nearly impossible to destroy. We have advanced in 18 months what the Council achieves in centuries. She leaned forward, her eyes boring into every camera, every screen, every being watching across the galaxy. The Krell murdered our people today. That was their last mistake. But it was the Council's mistake that created this moment. You voted to cage us. You should have left us alone. The transmission ended. And across the galaxy, in government chambers and military headquarters, on worlds both advanced and primitive, every species that had voted against humanity felt the same cold realization. They had created exactly what they feared. A human species united by purpose. Armed with technology beyond imagination. And now absolutely determined to never be caged again. On Nexus Station, in an emergency session of the Council, Prime Adjudicator Thane stood before his fellow delegates. His crystals had turned black with what might have been fear or might have been shame. We have made a grave error, he said quietly. Only the Verithan observer showed no surprise. His silver eyes gleamed with something that might have been satisfaction. 3 days later, Ambassador Elena Cross returned to Nexus Station. This time, she did not come to petition. She came to dictate terms. Behind her floated the Prometheus and 50 ships of the Phoenix fleet, their presence a quiet reminder of humanity's newfound power. The council chamber was packed. Every delegate was present. No one wanted to miss this moment. Elena walked to the center platform just as she had 18 months before. But everything had changed. The isolation decree is void, Elena said without preamble. Humanity will not be caged. We will not surrender our colonies. We will not accept limits on our growth or development. Those terms are non-negotiable. Thane's crystals shifted to a pale blue. Ambassador Cross, we acknowledge our error. The Council is prepared to offer full membership immediately. We can also discuss reparations for the lives lost in the Krell attack. Reparations? Elena's voice was cold. You cannot pay for those lives. You cannot undo what Commander Zex did. But you can ensure it never happens again. Here are humanity's terms. She activated a holographic document. First, the isolation decree is declared void and criminal. Any species that attempts to isolate or restrict another species in the future faces immediate expulsion from the Council. Second, full reparations of 10 trillion credits to the families of the massacre victims. Third, Commander Zex and all officers who participated in the attack stand trial for murder under human jurisdiction. Fourth, restructuring of Council voting procedures to prevent persecution of minority species. Elena paused. And fifth, humanity takes a permanent seat on the Council Security Committee with veto power over any resolution that limits the sovereignty of member species. The chamber erupted. Some delegates shouted in outrage. Others demanded compromise. A few looked relieved that humanity's terms were not more severe. Through it all, Elena stood silent and unmoved. Finally, Thane raised his hand for quiet. These terms are extensive. The Council will need time to deliberate. You have 24 hours, Elena said flatly. After that, humanity withdraws from all Council activities and pursues our own path. You will have proven that this organization exists only to preserve the power of the strong over the weak. We will want no part of it. The vote came 18 hours later. Every species voted to accept humanity's terms. Even the Krell, leaderless and humiliated, had no choice but to agree. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson. You could not cage humans. You could only decide whether they would be your partners or your problem. 6 months after the vote, on the colony world of New Covenant, children played in parks that now sat beneath open sky instead of underground rock. Human and alien children together, running and laughing without fear. Embassies from a dozen species had opened in human space. Trade agreements flowed like water. Scientific cooperation accelerated discoveries that benefited everyone. In a quiet garden on Nexus Station, Elena met with the Verithan observer. The ancient being sat on a bench carved from shadow, his silver eyes watching the stars through a transparent dome. You knew, Elena said softly. You knew what would happen if they caged us. The observer's voice was like wind through leaves. My species faced similar persecution 100,000 years ago. We were young, ambitious, frightening to the established powers. They tried to contain us. They learned, as the Council has learned, that persecution creates exactly what it fears. What happened to your species? Elena asked. We survived. We grew. And eventually, we stepped back from galactic affairs to watch and record. We had proven ourselves. We had nothing left to prove. The observer turned his silver gaze on Elena. Your restraint proved humanity's worth more than any display of power could have. You had the ability to destroy. You chose to disable. You could have sought revenge. You chose justice. That is why you will lead this galaxy into its next age. Elena looked out at the stars, at the infinite possibilities stretching before humanity and all the species they now stood beside as equals. We didn't want to lead. We just wanted to be free. Freedom and leadership are often inseparable, the observer replied. Those who fight for their own freedom inevitably fight for the freedom of others. The Council learned that the hard way. Now they will benefit from it. On Earth, in the Canadian facility where Project Anvil had been born, General Wade deactivated the last of the Hammerstrike weapons. They would be stored, maintained, but never used unless absolutely necessary. Humanity had proven it could build weapons that could shake galaxies. Now they would prove they could build something better. Peace. Partnership. Progress. The Council had voted against humanity, believing they were containing a threat. Instead, they had created the very thing the galaxy needed most. A species young enough to remember what it meant to fight for freedom, powerful enough to defend that freedom, and wise enough to use their power with restraint. History would remember the vote. But not as the Council expected. It would be remembered as the moment humanity stopped asking for permission and started taking responsibility. For themselves. For their neighbors. For a galaxy that had forgotten what it meant to be free. Commander Zex stood trial on Earth and was found guilty of 847 counts of murder. He served 20 years in a human prison before being released and returned to Krell space. He lived another 30 years, long enough to see humanity become the most influential species in the galaxy. Long enough to understand the magnitude of his mistake. Long enough to know that his attack had not broken humanity but had forged them into something unbreakable. On the anniversary of the massacre, humanity held a memorial on New Covenant. Representatives from every council species attended. 847 names were read aloud. 847 flowers were placed at a monument that stretched toward the sky. And one name was added at the bottom. Not a victim's name, but a reminder. The council voted against humanity. Their last mistake was the vote. It was not a threat. It was not a boast. It was simply the truth. A truth the galaxy would never forget.